Hey guys, today's birth story is an induction of labor due to gestational diabetes that is insulin controlled, as well as hypothyroidism and an occasional pop of hypertension. What's really exciting for me about today's birth story is it is with Bethany, who chose Birth Story Boutique, which is my company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and to trust our childbirth education, our community, and our doulas, both birth and postpartum, to support her story. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you learned something from this birth story, but especially if you're facing an early induction of labor due to any of those conditions, that this positive birth story really helps you feel happy and confident going into the unknown of an induction. All right, let's get to it. What does a contraction feel like? How do I know if I'm in labor? And what does a day of labor look like? Wait, is this normal? Hey, I'm Heidi. My best friends call me Hides. I'm a certified birth doula, host of this podcast, and author of Birth Story, an interactive pregnancy guidebook. I have supported hundreds of women through their labor and deliveries, and I believe every one of them and you deserves a microphone and a stage. So here we are. Listen each week to get answers to these tough questions. Birth Story, where we talk about pregnancy, labor, deliveries, where we tell our stories and share our feelings. And of course, chat about our favorite baby products and motherhood. And because I'm passionate about birth outcomes, you will hear from some of the top experts in labor and delivery. Whether you are pregnant, trying desperately to get pregnant, or you just love a good birth story, I hope you will stick around and be part of this birth story family. Welcome. Before we get started with this episode, I just wanted to share a little bit about an adventure that I have on Instagram. My Instagram handle is birth.story.academy, and I have been doing something in stories called Birthbound. Birthbound is where I tell birth stories in real time as I, the doula, leave for a birth. And then I update the audience as the birth unfolds. So if you love birth stories, then I would invite you to join me on Instagram at birth.story.academy and watch my stories for Birthbounds. After 23 years of doing birth work as a doula, I have less than a 10% cesarean section rate. That is an 87% relative risk reduction of having a cesarean section if you are in my care. And the question then becomes why? While I've been to the operating room many times, I've only been to the operating room 3 times if a client was in spontaneous labor and did not have any medical interventions. 3 out of 1,300. I've also only seen shoulder dystocia 2 times. 2 out of 1,300. And while my clients are not fully protected from having cesarean sections, medical interventions, and birth trauma even, the vast majority of those who go through Birth Story Academy in my program end up with positive, happy, non-traumatic births where they and their partners feel really empowered throughout the process. So in Birth Story Academy, you will learn about hospital policies and procedures, pelvic mechanics, the stages of labor, interventions, pain management options, how you can advocate for yourself, how your partner can advocate for you. It is 6 hours of information, and it also comes with the Birth Story Pregnancy Guidebook and Journal. You can go to birthstory.com and use code LOVE to receive $50 off. I would love to see you in class, have you part of my community, and start working towards a positive, informed, educated birth experience. And if you're just here for birth stories, that's okay too. Thanks for being here. Hey, Bethany, welcome to the Birth Story podcast. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. I'm Bethany Burdine.
I'm very excited, you guys, because very rarely have I brought my own clients on to the Birth Story podcast. And everybody who listens knows I am a birth doula in Charlotte, North Carolina for 23 years. And I usually just interview all of you guys from all over the world and expert speakers. But I put into my WhatsApp chat like, hey, I want to do a little series right here with our own community. Like, who wants to raise their hand? And so Bethany was one of the first to raise her hand. And we're really excited to hear about her birth story today. And that unfolded in my own community and with my own doula team and within the hospital system that I know very well. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Bethany. Thank you so much for raising your hand.
Yeah, thank you for having the idea and putting it out there.
Well, let's start at the beginning. So, everyone who comes to this podcast or to their birth story has a different journey that led them to the actual pregnancy. So, will you just share a little bit about, were you trying to get pregnant? Did you do fertility? Did you get pregnant spontaneously? Like, what did your journey to motherhood look like?
Yeah, so I've been married for now 8 years, and being um married to my husband, just the two of us, for a long period of time was great. It was wonderful, but we got married at a younger age, so I was leading into my 30s, and now I'm 31. So I was leading into my 30s, and I was like, probably should start thinking about having a child if I want to have a child. And I think I was like, I want to have a child. I want to actually have at least one. And so I was like, okay, well, let's just stop birth control. So we did, and then we also were actually like legitimately trying like more often, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say like we were like really gun ho. Where I was like, well, I want to have my child in the winter. So I'm a planner, and I'm always like, okay, let's like try to cut the birth control here so that hopefully I'll get pregnant by June so that I can have like a um winter springish baby. So
So, how did that work out for you, Bethany?
it worked out well. She wasn't my daughter wasn't and like actually um I didn't get pregnant with her like immediately, like the first month,
Yeah.
but after that, I got pregnant with her. So I had a pretty
Wow.
long period that first month afterward, and I was really annoyed because I was like, I haven't had periods forever, and this one's like really crazy. But after that, she
Oh,
was
yeah.
conceived, so it was all good.
The first period after stopping birth control, and then the first period after having a baby. Those are the two worst periods. I'm sure there's worse ones, but those are two pretty bad ones. So, but that's a relatively short conception journey. But that also speaks to like, your age, right? Like in your mind, you're like, getting to 30. And I'm like, but that's actually pretty good for fertility still. So second month. And then at that time, did you know about doulas? Like, were you like, we should get a doula now that we're pregnant? Like, what brought you to Birth Story Boutique?
So I think I knew kind of about doulas. I didn't know exactly like what you guys do to help or in the process much. I just knew the concept a little bit.
Yeah.
And we had a friend that was pregnant a couple months ahead of me. So, and she had hired the Birth Story Boutique, and she loved you guys. She absolutely just like hammered on Heidi is the best. She is great, and you should like look into this. And so, towards the I think third trimester, I was like, okay, we're actually thinking about having a birth plan now, and I'm like, I need some extra support. So let's look into this and let's hire somebody.
Oh, I love it. We are so glad that you landed here in our community with Birth Story Boutique. And I know that we had jumped on a call to talk about what you were envisioning for your birth. So, share with me a little bit about kind of what it was like to interview with a doula, or maybe what you were looking for personality wise. I would love to hear about, and let others listening, like what it was like to kind of hire a doula, and then what the doula and Birth Story Boutique, like what we were able to provide for you leading up to the birth.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess hiring a doula kind of goes through like a little interview process, kind of similar to what we're doing now with Zoom. You just kind of talk to somebody. And so Heidi had recommended one of her doulas that she thought would be a good fit based on the fact that I wanted somebody maybe a little bit spiritual, Christian centered in my plan. So Raquel is great. First, talking to her, she just like, um, I just felt at home. I don't know what it was, but I just kind of felt at home a little bit. And so I didn't necessarily need to talk to somebody else. And
Mhm.
so we just hired her, but it was great to have her because, and through my anxiety leading up to birth, there were times where she was just like, okay, Bethany, this is what we're going to do. Like my anxiety through like, for example, having high blood pressure and them calling me hypertensive, but I'm like, but I'm not. Like, look at my numbers. I'm doing this myself at home, and my numbers are all kind of like normal. So, like, why are you calling me hypertensive?
Mhm.
And she's just like, calm down, just know that the Lord is with you, like while you're going to those places, and just breathe and you just kind of stay calm, and then things will be fine. Um, so you gotta just help remind me of some of my tenets in Christianity that helped me to move forward through different aspects. And even postpartum, she was like coming over occasionally or being a support while I needed her as well. So um and she's just always great to remind me of certain things when my brain is going crazy and I'm like, ah.
Mhm.
So
That's so beautifully said. And the fact that you brought your religion and spirituality up in the initial conversation, I think is also very important because part of the pregnancy and specifically the labor and birth process is the surrender. So, creating an environment in which you can surrender to the people around you, surrender to your higher power, lean into the trust that you were designed to do this and that you are safe and that God knows what your body is going through, but also having like, yes, a doula, but also Raquel in your birth story was, at least in the pregnancy too, somewhat of like, we say clergy, like a spiritual advisor to kind of remind you of your faith when it's tested through some of the hard pieces of it. So, and it is important to have those conversations up front because we want to, I wouldn't want someone coming into an interview and then partnering with them with someone who's agnostic. So making sure that the things that are special to you or important to you, that you want incorporated into your birth plan and that you want someone to like cradle and support you with, those are really important things to talk about up front. And so you guys built this relationship. And I know you had a little bit of that white coat syndrome with the hypertension. Like your numbers were fine at home. And then,
mhm.
woo, you get to the office and it's like, Bethany is sick. So tell me about
Yeah.
tell me about the end of pregnancy and sort of what that looked like leading up to your labor and birth.
Yeah, so um the white coat syndrome I feel like helped like happened more because I went to like other OBGYNs that I wasn't like fully comfortable with. I didn't know. And so I would just like we would just need an appointment. So I would just go to the one that was the most available. And then I'd be like, but this is new and I don't know what I'm doing. And then so that just kind of newness and anxiety to that brought on some of those higher numbers as well. But then they would retest me and I'd be fine. And then they'd be like, but I'm worried.
Were you worried?
I was kind of worried because they were worried. And
Yeah.
so I was like, stop.
It's like the spiral, the cascade of worry, the waterfall of worry. Oh my goodness. And then that's where Raquel came in to be like,
Yeah.
hey, she's
It's
a
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also love Raquel because she's a certified breathwork coach. So she's like always kind of in that like calm, slow, deep breathing. She can bring your blood pressure down pretty fast.
Yeah,
you
she's
know?
good. Yeah. It's almost like she needed to be with me.
Yeah. But like
But no,
overall,
it's okay.
besides this
Mm.
like, white coat syndrome that was happening with these like little spikes in your blood pressure, how was everything else going in the pregnancy? Like was everything else continuing to stay relatively low risk?
Um, Everything was pretty good other than the fact that I also had gestational diabetes. So that also made me higher risk. There's other underlying health conditions that I already kind of have, like hypothyroidism as well.
Mhm.
So I was told at some point that because of my hyperthyroidism alone and my obesity, that I would probably need to be induced no matter what, even if I didn't have um, the extra, hypertension or gestational diabetes. So I ended up getting gestational diabetes, and that's what made me go to that like specialty, oh, what like
Maternal fetal
fertility.
medicine.
Yeah, my
Yeah, yeah,
maternal
yeah. There you
fetal
go.
medicine.
MFM, maternal fetal medicine. That's typically like, at least in the United States, that's the label for like the air quote, like high risk doctors. They have like a higher level of imaging and testing. And then also the MFM doctors have gone on to do like specialties beyond being just an I'm like but like just an OBGYN. So they have that maternal fetal specialty with high risk complications. So I know with all of that, how many did you go to MFM a lot or just a couple of appointments?
I think just a couple times, from what I recall. It was really just to check up on making sure that my baby was developing okay and not too fast and still looking good,
Mhm.
um, for the most part. So I don't really know exactly what they're looking into every single time. That's kind of how I felt.
I mean, everything from just like structural to, size, the abdominal circumference, making sure that, genetically they're looking at everything, your amniotic fluid, the blood flow with the vessels. I mean, they're looking at so many different things. There's and movements and practice breathing. There are markers that on imaging, especially, there are markers that allow your providers to make a guess as to how they believe that your baby is doing on the inside and how your placenta is doing. And then at some point, they make a call that says, you know what? I think the baby might do better on the outside than on the inside as they kind of watch and collect data. As we're recording this, Bethany, I have a scheduled cesarean section tomorrow morning, and it is through maternal fetal medicine. It is a twin mom, and they've been watching her very closely at MFM. And she'll be 31 weeks tomorrow. So we're having an emergent cesarean section, not emergency, just emergent cesarean section at 31 weeks because at some point we've gotten enough data, and by we, I mean her medical team, but they've gotten enough data to say, twin A is doing great and twin B is falling behind and behind and behind. So we think that these boys will do better on the outside than on the inside. So that's what they're looking for. Now with your gestational diabetes, were you controlled with diet or were you doing insulin?
Really controlled with diet. So I would talking to the dietitian was the first step, which was great because she was just like, okay, what are you doing now? What are you eating now? Let's change it up a little bit. Let's add some snacks here and here. Maybe a little bit lower portion size for lunch and dinner and stuff like that. So, and make sure that you're having your proteins and your fats and
Mm-hmm.
not so much carbs. So,
Yeah.
which just sucks because you're pregnant and you're like, but I want some carbs like every now and then.
It's so hard because, like, with anyone, even without gestational diabetes, I mean, carbs are what's like palatable. It's so easy to have like butter noodles, you know what I mean? Or cereal. It is not as easy sometimes to have like, meat or, pick a protein and vegetables. Like sometimes it's and I know there's a lot of carbs in vegetables too, but sometimes that's just a little bit of a harder route when all you're like, I just want Cheerios and I can't have Cheerios 3 times a day
Yeah.
anymore.
Or like just those regular, pregnancy cravings. So like I guess in the midst of that, sometimes I would cheat and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But most of the time I would stick to my diet
Mm.
because I wanted to do it for the better of my baby. So
Yeah.
sticking to the diet kept my numbers good in between those 70 and 140 numbers pretty regularly, but not my overnight numbers. So that's the reason why I had to have overnight insulin in order to keep my fasting numbers down.
Yeah. And that is very common. I see like in my own doula practice also is that we'll see like these amazing like post-meal numbers, but then just like the overnight everyone's sugars are high, like their fasting is high in the morning. And then they do a little bit of insulin to help their pancreas out. So, to get those numbers under control. Now with like insulin, and I'm going to call it air quote dependent. So with insulin dependent gestational diabetes, meaning they've put you on insulin, at least overnight, they often will recommend an induction of labor sometime between 37 and 39 weeks. Very rarely go ever recommending like a birth after 39 weeks. So was your hypothyroidism considered Hashimoto with an autoimmune or just hypothyroid?
I think just hypothyroid. It was still controlled as they changed the dosage.
Yeah.
They were taking my blood every now and then to make sure that it was still in control. Yeah.
Okay. But you you were on Synthroid essentially throughout your pregnancy.
Yeah, I've always been on Synthroid.
Yeah, and likely will always be.
Yeah.
So, you have a couple of little factors that popped up in your pregnancy that said, the placenta is an organ and it's very smart, but when there's multiple things going on, typically your body goes into labor on its own when the placenta has exhausted itself, or your maternal fetal medicine and your OBGYN will recommend inducing before, like catching it before your placenta is like, we're done here. So what did those conversations look like at the end of pregnancy?
So I feel like they just basically just recommended it and just basically was like, this is what's gonna happen. Um in my chart.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I got a little nervous about that too. And I was like, okay, let's talk to Raquel and like, okay, let's try to figure out things that maybe we can do to kick off this spontaneously. So Raquel does natural induction for reflexology for natural induction of inducing labor. And there's other things that you can try to do to induce labor naturally, such as walking and I forget what else I was trying to do. I think that's
Yeah.
basically
Well, typically, if you don't have gestational diabetes, we'll say like there's you can eat dates or pineapple. Don't do that if you have gestational
I
diabetes.
was like, nope,
You
couldn't do
know,
that.
you can, having sex is really great because
We tried that.
I was going to say the semen like softens the cervix. There's an entire natural induction guide at birthstory.com under the workbook. So if you guys are listening to Bethany and you're like, hey, I would like a big guide that Heidi wrote on all of my best strategies for naturally inducing, then I would go check out that workbook. But when you're working with a doula like Raquel, she's probably sending you like, hey, why don't you try the mile circuit today? Like, why don't you drink this red raspberry leaf tea? Why don't you come in for natural induction reflexology? There are a lot of things that we can do to encourage our baby and our body to come forward. But if we could induce labor that easily, you know, inductions wouldn't be billions of dollar, industry. People are like, I'm so afraid to get a pedicure. I'm like, if it was that easy to put you into labor, I only wish. so, so you did
Yeah.
all of the things
That I
and
could within my
yeah,
parameters. Yeah. Like
yeah,
raspberry leaf tea as well. Hmm.
yeah. And, you know, I've been a doula for a long time, Bethany, as you know, and it's really hard because there is this point, like I deeply believe in birth and physiological birthing and that can be relatively uncomplicated. But I also know that 3 to 10% of the time, my clients do better and their babies do better with the support or the recommendations when we have multiple factors coming into the situation. A little bit of spikes in blood pressure, a little bit of spikes in glucose, thyroid that is low and not, maybe controlled on medication. And all of these things just kind of putting increased stress on the placenta. So it is hard sometimes because our clients will come and say like, well, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, well, what do you think you should do? It's really hard. Because I always tell everybody, if you have a risk factor here or there, but when you have multiple risk factors, those are the clients that I'm like, this is who induction was made for. Not necessarily the person with no risk factors who's just 41 weeks gestation. I'm like, birth to me there is uncomplicated. But, you know, Bethany, you're the type of client where I'm like, yeah, I do believe that there is a place for you and your baby to benefit from an induction of labor if your body doesn't spontaneously start laboring on its own. So how'd it go down?
Yeah. So was reaching 37 weeks, and at my appointment they said that they were going to do another like anatomy scan at like 36 weeks, but they never did. And so it's like, are you going to do that or not? And so they did. They're like, oh, we should actually check. So they did, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, everything's good, still essentially. But they were like, your amniotic fluid is getting a little tiny bit low, but you're being induced next week, so we're not really concerned, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had it on my schedule to be induced the week of the 37th week,
Mhm.
I believe, or 38th week. I don't really completely recall.
Yeah.
um but they originally were like, well, let's do it like that Monday. So like Monday was going to be like the start of that week, 38. I think it was 38.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, can we like just push it on down a little bit, just a little bit. So I actually was induced on that Friday. And so it was that Friday weekend right before the 18th. Well, is when she was born. So it was the 17th that I was induced. Um, or the 16th, I think, actually. Um, so the 16th is when I was induced, and she was born on the 18th of that Sunday. So the 16th was that Friday. And so it was long, like normal, inductions don't just happen like that. Like Heidi said, like, if we could do it, that would be great.
Oh.
Even regular medically aided inductions don't just happen like that.
Hmm. And many hospitals have different protocols. Like some of them do what we call like progressive Pitocin, where they start at 4 milliunits and they go up by 4 every 30 minutes. Some hospitals do low and slow, where they won't even introduce Pitocin until after they've done like a ton of cervical ripening with prostaglandin agents like Cytotec or Cervidil or the balloon catheter. Then they'll bring Pitocin in kind of at 1 milliunit or 2 milliunits, and then they'll go up really slowly. So every hospital does things different, but I say, like in our area, I tell everybody to plan for 2 to 3 days for an induction of labor. And that doesn't necessarily mean 3 full days of laboring. It might mean you come in on a Sunday and you give birth a Sunday night and you give birth on a Tuesday morning. Well, that's technically the third, day. So now, Bethany, I know you came to childbirth class in person, but the
Yes.
online portion, Birth Story Academy, which is the 6 hours of online content preparing for a hospital birth, tell me if you had the opportunity, because I know that there's an entire section on inductions in spontaneous labor and cesarean sections. But did you have an opportunity to go through the class on inductions and do like a prenatal visit with Raquel to prepare for like what to expect during an induction? Did you feel like ready for it? Like academically, I guess.
Yeah, academically, I think I felt ready, not necessarily mentally, because I think when I got there, they're like, okay, this is our plan essentially. Let's just get you started. And I was like, hold up. I don't know if that really aligns with my plan on this.
Yeah.
So let's just like, can we, take it one step at a time? So we did it actually. But I had a plan, yeah, for all of those three, naturally, as well as induction, as well as if heaven forbid I had to have a cesarean, having a little bit of a plan there. So
Yeah.
every plan was kind of written out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really hard to get to this like mentally ready place when you're, being induced and you're being induced early. And there's a lot of things that come along with it. But hopefully the education and the doula and the birth, I'm going to air quote plan. We could like to call them preferences. Like these are the things I would prefer to happen, even though I'm sort of losing a good amount of control here. Sometimes we get in there and as the doulas, we try to advocate like, all right, what's left, right? Like if this was like 41 weeks and spontaneous labor and here's all of our preferences. Okay, well, here we are, 38 weeks in induction. Like what do we have left that we still can not necessarily control, but like honor, right? Even if it's as simple as prayer, right? Which was important for you in your birth. So I'm super curious when you start an induction of labor, typically the provider does a vaginal exam and rates your cervix in your body. They're like, I'm serious. It's called a Bishop score.
Mhm.
And you get points. Like your cervix gets to earn reward points if it's thin, if it has moved forward, if it is soft instead of hard, if it is open instead of closed. And when they do this vaginal exam and assessment and start handing out accolades to your cervix, that is what guides their recommendation for what type of induction to start with. As an example, Bethany, if you went in and your cervix was 90% thinned out, it was paper thin instead of being 4 centimeters thick and hard, which is normal when you're not in labor. And you go in and it's paper thin and it's 90% effaced or thinned out, and you're 4 centimeters dilated. Well, you're going to get this really high Bishop score. Your cervix is going to be like, hey, I got all the awards. And that Bishop score tells, like, in a sense, how long an induction might take and how likely someone is to have a vaginal birth. So if someone comes in 4 centimeters dilated, 90% effaced, The cervix is already ripe. So cervical ripening agents like Cytotec or Cervidil or a balloon catheter are not needed. There's really only two things essentially left. Give you some Pitocin, break your water, right? Like the tools are very limited for inductions of labor. The next person who comes in gets a Bishop score of 0. Cervix gets 0 awards. The cervix has done its job. It should probably get the highest award for being thick, closed, posterior, tucked in the back. That means like, good job, cervix. Your cervix has done its job to keep closed and hard and thick so that your baby didn't come out preterm. So we go in, we get a vaginal exam. Typically at some point in this process, whether they tell you the words Bishop score or not, they've assigned you and your cervix a Bishop score, and then they make a recommendation for cervical ripening or starting contractions or some mix of both. So I know you had just said like they wanted to do something that maybe you didn't like want to do. And so I was wondering, like, I wanted to give the background information to the audience on the information that you were given so that we can understand what you wanted versus what they wanted to do and what scores your cervix God. So
Received, yeah.
do you remember when you checked in getting a vaginal exam and kind of maybe they didn't tell you a Bishop score, but like coming up with a plan based on where you were at cervically speaking?
Yeah. So even like backtracking just a little bit in timeline. So at week 36, I even asked them to do a cervical exam at the doctor's office. And they had told me I was 1 centimeter dilated and maybe 10% effaced or something like that. So I was like, oh, yay, we're moving forward. I
Not
was hopeful.
closed, that is not 1 centimeter is not closed. So
Exactly. We were moving forward at least.
yeah.
So by the time we actually got to the hospital 2 weeks later ish, I was 2 centimeters dilated and about 20% effaced, I believe. But she was in the right positioning. So, but they had really recommended that I do, I think, a combination. I've heard that more postpartum from friends that they try at that hospital specifically, they try to really get people going and get people in and out. But so their plan was to do side attack, Foley bulb, and maybe also Pitocin all at once. And I was like, okay, hold up.
Whoa. That's a lot.
I was like, no way.
I don't have MD next to my name, but 23 years later, I would have put the brakes on that big time. That's a lot of medicines in your system all at one time and a lot of medicines for a baby to react to all at one time. That's a fast way to push you into a C-section.
Yeah, I was like, hold up. Let's do one step at a time. And so let's just start with Cervidil. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so
For side attack, I mean.
yeah, well, Cervidil and Cytotec are similar. Cervidil is more like a tampon looking prostaglandin releasing medication that kind of sits inside the vagina up at the cervix. And it can be removed at any time, but it typically stays in 6, 8, 12 hours. Cytotec are these teeny little pills. They can be given orally, like in your cheek, rectally, or up at through the vagina and up towards the cervix. And then one pill can be given usually, or whatever the dosage that they're using, can be given every 4 hours. It does require continuous fetal monitoring though, because it can cause GI upset, contractions, and it's, if they're giving you a medicine that causes these things, then they need to make sure that they're also doing continuous fetal monitoring. So I'm curious, since you consented to low and slow, which is amazing, you were already 2 centimeters. Your body's really smart. It was like, hey, we've got a lot of things going on. Meaning, like, to me, if you're that early and you're already 2 centimeters and you've been making progress from 1 centimeter to 2 centimeter, your body was about to go into labor on its own in the next week or so. What a beautiful thing, right? And so you consented to prostaglandin cervical ripening through side attack. Now, did they do it orally, vaginally, or rectally?
They gave it to me orally in my cheek.
Okay. All right. Did they let you eat?
No, but it was at night. It was like 7 p.m. when I got there, and I was
Okay.
like, please just give me some medicine here and there, but let me sleep. Let me rest. Thank you very much.
Good. Yeah. Did you eat before you went in though?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. Yeah, I
All
had
right.
dinner.
I want everybody to eat a meal before you go into an induction of labor. And then this is my disclaimer that's like, if you're hungry in labor or an induction, please eat. I honestly don't care what the hospital policy is. Like the chances of you ending in an emergency cesarean section and aspirating that food are quite low, but your uterus is a muscle and it needs a fuel. So I always tell everybody you might not be hungry, but if you are hungry, try to eat, you know? So it's good that you ate and you fueled your body and your uterus before you went in. You got the side attack in your cheek. Now, my experience tells me that's one pill every 4 hours, unless things really start picking up on the monitor. Like if they see you having contractions like every 2 to 3 minutes with like one pill, there might not be a reason to do pill two, but they usually can do up to 3 or 4 pills of side attack every 4 hours. What did they do for you after the one pill?
Yeah, they kept giving me those pills every 4 hours. I think after the second pill, they're like, "Are you okay with potentially doing the Foley bowl method
Yep.
as well to try to open things up?" And at that point, I was, um, I mean, tired, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think I was like, okay, fine, let's maybe get this going a little bit faster than this like really, really slow method. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go ahead and do that. So
Okay. So then we had side attack in the cheek in the balloon catheter. And so that balloon catheter, for those that are not familiar, it is a thin catheter that goes, you separate the labias, go through the vagina, go open that where that cervix is open, that 2 centimeters, it would slide through the cervix. And then there's a balloon on each side, and then they fill the balloons with fluid, like just sterile fluid. um it can be blown up to all different sizes. Some people put in 30 cc's, some put 40, 50, 60. And what that does is mimics the baby's head. It puts pressure on both sides of the cervix, and then it releases prostaglandins. It's like tricking your body into thinking that's a baby's head, which then starts this prostaglandin oxytocin feedback loop from your brain and your body that says, oh, we should thin our cervix. We should thin it out. There's a head right here on it. We should have some contractions. Um, and so that is the role, because the mechanism of action of labor is unknown. So we're just guessing, Bethany. We're like, let's just try these things that we know work sometimes. So doing those two things together has some pretty good data for putting people into labor and ripening the cervix. So you got this balloon in. What did it feel like?
I guess laying down, I was still able to like get some rest. But afterward, when I woke up and stuff, I was like, okay, want to get off out of this bed and have some breakfast, which I was able to have. The doctors were okay with me eating essentially before I was in active labor.
Good. Okay. So the next day, which is technically day two of your induction, were you feeling a lot of contractions or a lot of pressure with the balloon? Was it painful, or was it just sort of, you know, in there?
I think it was just annoying, honestly. Like sitting down with it, I was like, just that, like having a little bit something sticking out or a little
Yeah.
something in that area. Just it felt a little uncomfortable, but I didn't remember it being painful or anything really, and I don't remember any contractions really starting there either.
Okay. That's good feedback because I get that question a lot. Like, and I would say, like, I've been in a lot of inductions, and most of my clients would report, Bethany, what you just reported. Like, it wasn't really that, it may not have felt great going in, but after that 10 seconds, it was just sort of annoying. I had one client one time say, it kind of felt like I had like 3 tampons in at one time. And I just wanted to take them out, but they were just in there, you know? And I was like, I can understand how that would feel annoying. So, now a balloon can stay in for up to 12 hours and or until your water breaks. Was that the plan to just keep giving you side attack and keep the balloon in until it fell out on its own or your water broke or 12 hours had passed?
Correct. Yeah, that was the plan. I
Okay.
think before 12 hours, it had dilated my cervix just a little bit,
Yeah.
enough to be able to fall out. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to tug on it because I was kind of tugging on it a little bit
Yeah.
because I was like, it's uncomfortable. Try to get it out a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But I would didn't want to hurt myself and I didn't know
Yeah.
how much to tug really. So,
Yeah.
but I think by the time they came in, it was ready and they were able to get it out pretty easily.
Yeah. I have seen them put it in and like 30 minutes later, like it has thinned and stretched the cervix open to 5 centimeters and it just falls out. And then I have other people where it's in for 12 hours and they're still a half a centimeter dilated. And it was like, well, that's not the modality that's going to work today for this induction. So yours fell out on its own. How do you know how many hours later it was that it fell out?
It was about 8 hours.
Okay.
Don't recall completely, but I think it was about eight.
Okay. All right. So now our cervix is thin. Your cervix is open because the balloon came out. You've had cervical ripening agents with side attack. At this point, were you laboring on your own with contractions, or were they like time to move to the next round, which is breakwater, Pitocin, or both?
Correct. Yeah, they were in the next round because I wasn't really going anywhere with contractions. So they're like, okay, we need to break waters or start production and or both.
Yeah.
And obviously I didn't like the both options.
Which one
and
did
I
you
wanted
like better?
and I didn't really want to do Pitocin. I wanted to stay away from Pitocin as much as possible just because I've heard horror stories with it. So we went with breaking waters.
Okay, amazing. Now, that typically will get labor started within a couple of hours. So tell me about how your labor then went from there. Because once your water is broken, now we would consider you are in labor. We have moved beyond cervical ripening, and that is technically the onset of your labor. So how did your labor go?
Yeah, I remember eating breakfast and then my contractions just started to pick up and we were watching the Super Bowl or watching a game that was leading up to the Super Bowl and I was like I can't. So I can't do this anymore. I have to start just focusing on my labor. So, yeah.
Ooh, that is serious. If you can't watch Super Bowl, like you're like, I have to really focus. That's getting serious. I was watching Legally Blonde, which is so ridiculous. And I remember like this particular scene, same thing, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm done watching movies now. Now I'm in labor. So, is at this point, is Raquel with you at this point? Like, what has her role been leading up until, like, oh my goodness, I have to focus now?
Yeah, so she was getting text updates from Austin and he was keeping her updated. We were calling her every now and then with kind of the new plan that the doctors were saying and like coming up with like what made sense for us as a team, more me as well, before making the full decision with the doctors as well. So we were doing that step by step as well. So that was really good.
Yeah, amazing. Now, when you first got to the hospital, was she able to come and like be check you in and kind of be part of that getting you started process? Some of the hospitals I know let that happen and some do not. But I was just wondering what that looked like on the front end.
Yeah, I believe she was able to be there that night and get some things set up a little bit, and then she went home. But yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay, and then the plan would be to return when things were kind of getting serious. Okay, so now things are getting serious and you have to
Yeah.
focus. Was your plan, like I'm going to air quote plan, okay, it's your first baby. It's hard to know. We can think what we want, right? But it's like kind of hard to know. Was your plan to get an epidural or to have an unmedicated birth or kind of a wait and see how it goes? Like what was your primary, intention, I guess?
Yeah, it was kind of a wait and see. I was wanting to do it unmedicated as much as possible with the caveat of like, yeah, there's that option. So,
Yeah. So I think that that's a great attitude for people who are having a hospital birth and it's their first baby. Um it's yeah, it sets you up for not being disappointed if you keep an open mind on let's see. I always say let's see how far we can go, one contraction at a time, and then you know, at any point, it's right there. If you're already at a hospital in an induction, right? The pain medicine, the nitrous oxide, the epidural, the IV pain, they're right there. You can get them anytime you want. But if you have a let's see how it goes, just it's nice to just do as many contractions as you can. So, what'd that look like for you? Did it hurt? Was it what did it feel like to start having contractions? That's what everybody wants to know. What does a contraction feel like? Like when you say I couldn't watch TV anymore and I had to focus, what does that feel like?
so I guess like the early labor contractions, and not like necessarily active labor. So there's different stages. Heidi can kind of go through this a little bit more too.
Yes.
But the different stages, the early labor aspect of things didn't hurt too much. Like I was actually watching the game leading up to the Super Bowl for like I think a quarter or so, and chilling on my birth ball and like having like breakfast. Like we were chilling for a while.
Yeah.
And then when things started to pick up and yeah, you just couldn't focus on anything anymore. You can't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it necessarily hurt, but it was just like I needed to actually get down to business. So just
Yeah.
needed to stop.
Now, was that all from your water breaking or at some point did they add Pitocin?
Just water breaking.
Just water breaking. Cool. So technically at this point, Bethany, is when we tell you as doulas, you're no longer an induction is to get things going. If things get going and then you're adding things, that's called an augmentation of labor. So at this point, they've induced you, but now you're in natural, physiological, unmedicated birthing territory, right? Like your water's broken, you have no other medications. Welcome to labor. You're in physiological laboring, right? So at this point, to me, your induction they don't use this language at the hospital, but as a doula, your induction has stopped. They induced, now you're in labor all on your own, right?
Yeah.
So when did you call Raquel?
When things started to get serious, like I
Yeah.
was like, I can't watch TV anymore. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Austin was like, hey, she can't watch TV. Like she's getting, things are getting serious. And he was helping me with different positions and different laborings for a while. I mean, from what you taught us, Heidi, as much as possible.
Yeah. And for Bethany and Austin's class, we practiced the labor positions from Bundle Birth. So I would just like to sometimes give a shout out to Bundle Birth. They have really great labor positions for inlet, mid pelvis, and outlet. And in my classes, we teach about how the pelvis works and how baby navigates the pelvis. But amazing. Like I usually give you the printout. So hopefully Austin had the printouts of the labor positions to practice. And then Raquel arrived on the site, and you guys now are a team of 3, right? Really working together.
Yeah, so it had gotten so intense, and I was starting to feel like a lot more back labor for some reason. So I had gotten into the shower. I don't know exactly what time, but it was just, yeah, things were really ramping up in
Yeah.
active labor, and I was like, I'm gonna get in the shower to try to help myself a little bit, and that's when Raquel was on her way. So.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. A shower, a bath. Do you also remember the position that we practiced for back labor? Do you remember with the inversion?
I do remember, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, it's been a
It was
while
always a
now.
position that's hard.
Yeah, I was like, it is very hard because we have a huge belly in the way. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to, trust me, it's hard to lean forward. I joke that, like, every time I did yoga, like, for those that don't know what I look like, I have quite large breasts and I've already had a breast reduction and I still have large breasts, but I can't do an inversion because my boobs like flop in my face and I can't breathe. But all that to be said, an inversion in labor where you put your chest down and your butt in the air, and then your partner or your doula can kind of like wiggle your hips. Sometimes that helps pop the head out of the pelvis just enough, especially when your water's broken, to just give a little bit of wiggle room for the baby to either tuck their chin or to turn their head. And it can help rotate a baby to come off of your back and to be in more of an OT or an OA position. So back labor sucks, you guys. So bath, what Bethany did, shower, or some inversions can help that. So
Yeah.
so it's getting serious. You're in the shower. Raquel's on the way. And
Yep.
then what happened?
So she got there right when I was in the shower, and she was helping me with some breathing and techniques in the shower. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm done with the shower.
Yeah.
So so we got out of the shower, and but at that time, because I was still having back labor, I was like, okay, I'm like, things are really painful at this point. Like, can we get some help? So um we did get some nitrous oxide come in, but we were continuing to do different positions, like you said, inversions and other positions that Raquel was helping us with to try to move her and
Yeah.
get the back labor out.
Yeah. Did it work?
No, it didn't. So
No.
I still was in back labor for
Yeah.
a while. But I think, and she was thinking I was approaching transition, um, right when I was like, okay, I can't do this nitrous oxide anymore. And I was like, I have to go with an epidural now.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't necessarily think I would have had to go that route if didn't have so much back labor, but I was like,
Hmm.
I need it. So
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to prepare or plan in advance, right? Like we just don't know what it's going to feel like. And I have only given birth 2 times, but I will tell you, one time it hurt and one time it didn't. And I just think it has to do with the baby's positioning, right? Like my uniquely, like we call it malpositioned, but I'm like, my uniquely positioned baby had a lot of back labor and I got an epidural. And then my other birth, perfectly positioned, and I have like really remember no pain, and I had an unmedicated birth. So it's hard to really prepare in advance. So I think you made decision by decision in the moment. You did, okay, I went as far as I could, nitrous oxide. I went a lot further, epidural. Was your epidural even on both sides? And were you able to like move your legs and kind of move them around, or were you like dead leg?
Yeah, so I think it was even, but I was, like, legitimately in bed, like, kinda dead, like, I needed some help to move.
Yeah. Everyone experiences the epidural differently. That's why I asked. Some people are like, I can't feel my legs, but they like move them all around, can lift them up in the air. And others are like, my brain is trying to move the leg and the leg is not moving. To me, that's the biggest benefit of a doula with an epidural birth is you have someone who's able to move your pelvis and your legs for you. And I don't mean like once an hour where a nurse flops you from your left side to the right side. So hopefully Austin and Raquel were able to work together to move your pelvis for you while you rested. Were you able to deeply rest?
Yeah, I was able to rest for a few hours
Yeah.
and, just, yeah, be there.
Yeah. Now, how'd you know it was time to have a baby?
So the doctors came in and they're like, "Hey, your baby girl is her heart rate's kind of going up and down a little bit, and
Okay.
we think she's ready." So
Okay. Yep. So typically during continuous fetal monitoring, which is required with an epidural and usually an induction of labor, there are signs, there are like these little V's when the contraction happens and the heart rate goes down. And then it goes right back up when the contraction ends and kind of like a shape of a V. And if that happens like peak to peak, so the lowest heartbeat is at the peak of the contraction and then your contraction is in the shape of a mountain and the heart rate decelerations in the shape of a V and they're perfectly lined up. That is typically an indication to your medical team that that head is getting squeezed and the head is very low and the baby is likely to be born soon. So I'm assuming they might have come in and offered a vaginal exam to check.
I don't recall them doing a vaginal exam
Okay.
because I had broken my waters already. So they
Yeah.
were like, after breaking waters, they were like, "No, we're just gonna, move forward as we see." So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes me very happy because the data shows that people are likely to get chorioamnionitis, which is in the infection of the amnion and the chorion, like essentially think like your uterus, placenta, amniotic fluid. Um, if your water has been broken for 24 hours or more and is the key word, you've had 5 or more vaginal exams. Now, people could develop an infection at any time, even with no vaginal exams. People could have 20 vaginal exams and never get an infection. But the like kind of where we see the highest rate of people getting choreo is around the 24-hour mark plus 5 vaginal exams. So I actually love that they were not like pushing vaginal exams or you, Austin and Raquel, were like being firm with your birth preferences to not have frequent vaginal exams. So were they like, hey, we should try pushing?
Yeah, they were like, we need to try, start transitioning and trying to push. So they got the whole delivery team in, and I asked for a mirror just to be able to see
Yeah.
like um, what was going down there a little bit. And so then we started to get guided instructions for how to push and get going.
Yeah. Okay. So how long did you push for?
Only about an hour.
Okay. And then can you explain to the audience like what pushing felt like?
Sure. So I think pushing is, even with an epidural, for me, it was still kind of painful and still kind of annoying, because you would still feel that like rectal pressure and a little bit rectal pain. So I don't know. I think it was like around my vagina specifically that the epidural didn't quite numb, but
Yeah.
it was completely numb and like I couldn't feel contractions or whatever. But so I would try to start pushing whenever I started to feel some rectal pain. And I would think I was a little early sometimes because I couldn't really feel my contractions. And so they literally had to like start to be like, okay, we're going to tell you go
Yeah.
and we're going to count you down. And so for these pushes. And but towards the end is when it started to hurt even like a little bit more because she was close to getting out. And they were doing I think some massage of the opening of where her head is,
Yeah,
so in order to
it's
prevent
called
some tearing.
yeah, it's called perineal massage. And it can just it's like kind of that tissue that's between like the very bottom of the vaginal opening and where your rect or your anus is. And so they can sort of just like massage that tissue as it's stretching to like help prevent some of that burning and tearing, but often you might have some anyway. 1 hour of pushing is actually quite good. The data shows with an epidural on a first birth, 30 minutes to 2 hours. So you're like on the front end of that. So amazing work there. Couple questions about delivery is like, what position did you give birth in and did you have tearing?
Yeah, so I was on my back in the bed for giving birth, kind of with stirrups for my legs, just
Mhm.
because I had an epidural and so I couldn't really go anywhere
Yeah.
at that point.
So that is my least favorite position to push in. But it's so funny because some people actually feel really powerful in that position. They're like, so I always say the best position to push in is the position that feels good for you to push in. And I often have people that say, like, I actually, the contraction started, I'm on my back, I pulled my knees up, and I felt like I was doing a pretty good job. And that is one of the only positions that you could actually use a mirror for. Like if you're on your hands and knees, you can't see anything with a mirror. If you're on your side, can't really see anything with a mirror. So if you want to use a mirror, just know you're going to be on your back like Bethany was. So, but an hour is amazing. Yeah. So
Yep.
tearing.
I think I had a little tiny bit of tear. I think they classified it as maybe like maybe I'll put air quotes around
Yeah.
that. Maybe a one. So we did delay cord clamp and until it stopped pulsating, and then they like clamped it, and my husband was able to cut the cord. So she was doing just fine. She cried like immediately, and they put her on my chest immediately, and then they had to take her a few times, I think, because she had some fluid, I think, a little bit in her mouth or something, and so they had to help her get some of that out. But she was doing just fine. Her scores were great, and she did just fine. Yeah, she passed all the things that she needed to pass in the next day or two, and we were able to get out of the hospital and get going home, which was needed because we had been there for like the whole weekend. So, and get some rest, some actual rest, and not just like hospital rest. So, but
Yeah. Bethany, you had such a beautiful induction, and I'm so glad that it ended in a vaginal birth. And I really think that it ended in a vaginal birth because you were educated, you advocated for low and slow, you had a doula there, your husband was very involved, you did a lot of creative labor positions. Like there was a lot of decisions that you made that led to the birth outcome that you had. And I know that you put a lot of time in being part of Birth Story and our WhatsApp community, and also utilizing like our lactation consultants and our postpartum doulas, and really creating an opportunity for like just a beautiful pregnancy, birth, and postpartum period. So thank you for choosing Birth Story Boutique. Thank you for actually engaging and doing all of the things that we recommend. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with us today. As always, audience members, if you have any questions about Bethany's story, you can always put a DM to me in Instagram. My handle is birth.story.academy. I am very responsive, even with the volume of listeners to this podcast. So if you have any questions, just reach out. And if you guys want to do the online portion of Birth Story Academy, which Bethany got a lot of her education from, then you can always look to that at birthstory.com. So Bethany, thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate you choosing Birth Story Boutique and just being part of our community forever and ever. And if you choose to have any more children, we hope we can be by your side again.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Birth Story. My goal is you will walk away from each episode with a clear picture of how labor and delivery might go, and that you will feel empowered by the end of your pregnancy to speak up, plan and prepare for the birth you want, no matter what that looks like.